Next is item 4D, a presentation on the solid waste services update to City Council. Mr. Blackburn?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor and members of the council. I'd like to start out with the city's actions most recently relative to our solid waste issues created by Waste Pro. So we've been doing and thinking of everything we possibly can. How can the city help to get ahead by supplementing resources that actually Waste Pro is supposed to be providing? So you, as a council, made a major decision about 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, with the idea of pausing recycling. That was done at the recommendation of Waste Pro, which indicated that the recycling vehicles, it runs at least 10 recycling vehicles every session, and those drivers could potentially be freed up to run garbage trucks. And of course, we know that our very most fundamental responsibility is getting the garbage picked up. And so the council did not make a decision to not do recycling forever. In fact, our FCC contract clearly has recycling as a major service in September. And it was hoped that that would be a 2 or 3 week pause at the most. So far, that hasn't happened. There have been some minimal improvements in productivity by Waste Pro, but we've not seen the impact of 10 drivers going from recycling to garbage pickup. Certainly when I talk to Waste Pro, they say it's coming, but it's not here yet. So in addition to pausing recycling, and we'll be monitoring very closely when can that start back, and your staff's recommendation will be based on when is Waste Pro providing 2-day-a-week service on time, on your scheduled day. So, but in the interim, we're also doing a number of other things. We hired a supplemental solid waste or yard waste and bulky waste contractor, Optimum Services. They've been working in the city about 3 weeks or 4 weeks, picking up large piles. We've picked up quite a few of the large vegetative piles, and so we are now reevaluating exactly how to best utilize Optimum Services. They are certainly focusing on the bulk waste as well. We also were fortunate that FCC, not as part of our contract with them long-term, but as part of a resource they had available, made 5 clam trucks available to the city at a charge. They've been working between Floresta and the river, PSL Archer, including St. James and St. Andrew. So they're working kind of in north of PSL Boulevard going up. And we contracted with St. Lucie West Improvement District to do yard waste in the gated communities in St. Lucie West. They ran their first sweep through our gated communities starting last Monday. They finished by Friday. So these are gated communities. Their landscaping contracts tend to require the landscapers to take away cut vegetation, but there are still trees and palm fronds and others that residents put out. And St. Lucie West picked all of those up, and we'll be working with St. Lucie West Improvement District to continue that service. And there'll be a few days break, and then we'll get them back on it again so we don't get behind. And then one of the items that has been very important, and the council has talked about it, citizens have discussed it, and that's whether the city can pick up trash, yard waste on our own. We do not have any compactor trash trucks. We've not had the ability to be able to efficiently provide that kind of service. We've been, since the Waste Pro issues began back in when they issued their termination notice, we've been looking at, okay, how can we hedge our bets? And scouring the state, looking at rental companies all over the state. We were, until just 2 weeks ago, we were not able to find any kind of compactor vehicles. Last week, we were able to rent 2 vehicles. We put those vehicles on the road. We used CDL drivers from our Public Works Department and helpers. Unfortunately, that meant that those drivers that were working on drainage projects and other public works projects had to come off of those projects in order to run those vehicles. So the good news is we have 2 vehicles out there. These are vehicles dedicated to the most egregious misses. So somebody who lets us know through one PSL that someone has been missed for 7 to 10 days or more. We dispatched those vehicles. Last week, we were averaging over 400 pickups a day by each of the vehicles. And we did find in some cases where Waste Pro had indicated that they had provided a route and provided service. We had residents call in and say, no, didn't get mine. My neighborhood still has garbage out on the roadside. We dispatched the vehicles. They did indeed find that there were some neighborhoods it was reported that had been served, and others there were reports that the entire route was served, and when we found only a portion was served. But it resulted in people perhaps not getting service for 7 or more days. So those 2 vehicles are out, say reserved for the real egregious misses. And they have been effective, and we're going to continue to run them. We rented the vehicles for 6 months, and so we'll be using them throughout, and I do believe they're making a difference. But if you think about 400 pickups a day, we have 81,000 homes that get service. So it's it can't really make a huge impact, but it can help those people who've been missed for a long period of time, and that's our goal. We're using our one PSL system for all of those reports to work our way down so that we reduce our outstanding one PSLs for those misses that were longer than 7 days, and we brought that outstanding list down significantly. I would also like to note that we are seeing a reduction in one PSL complaints now, but it can change on any day. And so that's what we're keenly aware of, that one day things look good, and it only takes one day of 22 trucks being on the road for Waste Pro, and you've missed a substantial chunk of the city, and we're back in a hole. So Waste Pro did run 46 trucks on Saturday. That's the most trucks that I'm aware of that they've had on our streets and running our routes. We've been looking at where all they went. One of the difficulties that we've shared with Waste Pro that our staff is expressing extreme frustration is routes are reported as complete and only a portion of the route is actually complete. Or it's hard to explain the logic, but there'll be in a route, there'll be a street that may run north-south going down an east-west street that's the spine of the route. One street will be served and the next one won't. And so it's just incredibly hard to predict, is the route really complete or not? Garbage is being picked up, but not to the point where you should be able to say, okay, I'm checking that route off. It's done. Everybody's been served. Very frustrating. We have designated our code enforcement officers to ride every route. They're there in the mornings, and now they're following and driving through those routes to see whether all of the streets are picked up. Again, a misuse of our resources. Those are folks who ought to be out, doing code enforcement complaints, being able to help us in other areas, and instead they're doing Waste Pro's job. That is what the Waste Pro supervisors should be doing, and actually going behind in the routes, making sure they're picked up. So if a citizen has a miss, they should leave their can out until it's picked up. What we're seeing is between Sometimes it's the next day. Most of the time, it's 2 days later, the trash will be picked up. And so I know that citizens have contacted and said, I don't know if I should bring my can back in or leave it out. Unless you're in an HOA that does not allow you to leave your can out, I would recommend leaving it out. It will get picked up. We're seeing that except for those egregious misses, that most folks are being picked up within 2 days or 3 days. And so we encourage you, leave your can out, it'll get picked up. We also have some other options. So we have the Cameo site. It's called a convenience site or center. That site, we allow you to bring at no charge, as much as you want, yard waste. You can bring your recycling. I know that we're a lot of folks who are very committed to recycling, and we encourage that and appreciate it. We do have a recycling container. Now, I did hear over the weekend that the recycling container was full, and people were saying, but wait, what am I going to do with it? Am I supposed to throw it away? We're encouraging residents, put the recycling right beside the container. Waste Pro does empty those containers, obviously not as fast as they should, but they have a clam truck that will pick, when they come to empty it, they'll also pick that recycling up with their clam truck and take the recycling away. Don't throw it in our mixed bulky waste container. Don't throw it away. If you believe in recycling, which we all do, that's a great way to make sure it gets recycled while we're in this pause. So also, St. Lucie County Landfill has been working with Waste Pro. They've set up two 40-yard dumpsters out in front of the landfill, one for vegetative waste and one for mixed load waste. That no charge to city residents if you want to take your either trash or vegetative waste to the landfill. So some folks who live more northwest, that's actually very convenient. So you have that as an option. And our Cameo site for folks in the east and the center part of the city. So it's, certainly encourage use of the Cameo site. It's been well used. It is a nice relief valve if you haven't received the kind of pickups that you expect. That is at least one way you can quickly get rid of your trash, or not your trash, I'm sorry, your recycling and your yard waste. We do not accept trash, although the landfill, St. Lucie County Landfill, does accept trash. So on a looking forward note, FCC is in their transition period. Every month, there are a number of activities that FCC is to accomplish as they get ready to take over service in September. They were here visiting with us last week. They have developed their preliminary route schedule. They'll be working with staff to review that to make sure it works. One of the things that's important about their preliminary route schedule, much smaller routes, fewer homes on each route. Also, because they're automated trash pickup and automated recycling, they can move faster than a traditional rear load. And so they're meeting all of their benchmarks for the actual beginning of service in September. And they've been working well with staff, sharing information, staff helping them. And so our next step is to just review each of those routes, make sure that there's no glitches there that they might not be aware of. So that transition plan is going well. And then we would expect our garbage cart, or 96-gallon, or in some cases 64-gallon garbage carts to be delivered in August. So from a looking forward, as we get beyond this painful period of Waste Pro in this transitory process, September is looking good. So, and Madam Mayor, I'll stop there on my overall review. I know you've you've added an additional item for discussion on solid waste after this.
But before we get to that, I would like to have our city attorney give us an update, legal update, and then also talk about next steps going forward with regard to the lawsuit.
Yes, ma'am. Well, where we're at with the lawsuit against Waste Pro, as you know, council directed my office to file suit against Waste Pro. Our initial suit was back in September, where we were just trying to encourage them to fulfill their obligation and to get authorization to use outside sources. Once Waste Pro unlawfully terminated the contract in March, we amended that lawsuit to claim our own count of breach. We did go in on May 26th in front of the judge. It's actually been like our third hearing with Judge Buchanan. Had filed a motion for an injunction and to get an order from the judge to order Waste Pro to comply with the terms. Because in the contract, once the contract was terminated by Waste Pro, there is a required 6-month period where they're still obligated to fulfill the terms of the contract. And that's the period we're in now. Because their service wasn't getting any better, as I was being informed by staff, we asked Judge Buchanan to give us an order ordering Waste Pro to fulfill that. We did get that order. She acknowledged that there were severe deficiencies in the service from Waste Pro and enjoined them from removing any equipment, including dumpsters, trucks, or any other equipment from the city, and ordered them to comply with the terms of the contract. That has been since May 26th. In large part, we were basing that on the letter that Waste Pro sent to the city manager saying that if we suspended the recycling, they could get caught up, I believe they said by May 30th. Since that hasn't happened, we are continuing to collect information when we receive it on deficiencies, and my office is right now preparing a motion for the court to find Waste Pro in contempt of Judge Buchanan's order because clearly nothing's gotten better. So we are preparing those documents now in order to file that. At the same time, one of the things moving forward that we need is, because we have been in front of Judge Buchanan numerous times, and we've picked up on what Waste Pro is saying in court. Basically, they're denying it at every turn that they're that far behind, and they have made that pretty consistent. So, with the help of our IT department, my office has set up an email address. Is Wastepro Lawsuit at cityofpsl.com. It's one of our regular city emails, but it's Wastepro Lawsuit. And what we're hoping to get from citizens, it's not going to replace one PSL. We still need citizens to put any complaints in there. It's the only way they'll get addressed by city staff. But what my office needs are those egregious reports of trash that's been sitting out 7+ days, 10 days, 2 weeks, because according to Waste Pro, whenever they're in front of the judge, they deny any of that exists quite vehemently. And while in all the hearings we've had city staff testify, our city staff, even when we go out there and take photographs, we're not there the next day or the next day or the next day, and that's where they're picking it apart. It's like, well, yeah, this is a picture of an overflowing trash can, but you don't know when it was picked up. Was it picked up later that day or the next day? That's why we need help from the residents. So we need people, and that email address should be used for residents that are willing to provide their name and address. It can't be anonymous. We need your name and address, and we need individuals who are willing to provide evidence and to provide testimony if necessary when this does go to trial, or if we go in front of the judge again for our contempt hearing, because we do need that evidence. And so I've got 2 paralegals and 3 lawyers all have access to that email box. We're going to monitor it constantly, and if we get reports, feel free to attach photographs to them or whatever. Somebody from my office will be in touch with those individuals, get what information is available and have those individuals ready to testify if necessary, so that we can direct this, because the lawsuit that's pending right now, my office is pursuing it at your direction, but it's on behalf of the residents and business owners. I mean, that's what we're, if I could just briefly, just so that everyone understands, this is a breach of contract lawsuit. In contract law, when you have a contract with a party to do something and they don't do it, and you have to go out and find someone else to do it, that initial party is going to be responsible for any of those costs of getting it done. So right now, everything that the manager was talking about as far as Optimum, FCC starting early, even our own city crews doing this work, the truck rentals he was talking about, all that's ultimately going to be the responsibility of Waste Pro. But at the same time, the day Waste Pro leaves and FCC takes over, because the FCC contract is costing us more, the contracted price that Waste Pro had still exists. Okay, that because FCC is more, because the market has changed and they're coming in, the way they did, it's going to be more. Our argument in court under contract remedies, it's a remedy called cover, which is basically we had to get someone else to cover the job that Waste Pro contracted to do. So we will be seeking the difference between the Waste Pro contract price and the FCC actual price. That is where this lawsuit will be going. It could potentially end up being a $30 or $40 million lawsuit. And we will fight to the end for every dollar that the residents are entitled to.
Okay, I don't know where that came from, but okay. So, thank you very much for that update. I think it's important to share the next steps that we're heading to with regard to that. And, that might take a while to get through that lawsuit and to be able to recover those damages, correct? It's going to take
Yes.
some time.
Unfortunately, these things don't move through the courts quickly, so we could potentially be looking at maybe 2 or 3 years. We are handling it in-house. I've got, like I said, 3 litigators and myself working on it, so we are going to keep pushing it forward. We're not going to let it, kind of linger, but it still takes time to get things through. By the time you do depositions and everything else, it's a time-consuming process.
Correct. So the most frustrating part for me in all of this, just to share some comments, and council, I want everyone to weigh in, and then we'll go to public comment, is that, we've done exactly what was requested by Waste Pro in order to attempt for them to get caught up. And so once again, they said that they were going to make changes to their operations. We were going to suspend the recycling and to get them to be able to get caught up. And what's even more frustrating is that we thought that there was going to be consistency as a result of suspending the recycling. And in turn, although there has been a little bit of progress, which I think we are all very grateful for, because some progress is better than none, especially with everything that has been occurring. It's not the progress that we want, and we're now on week 4 when they said that, it'll take us about a week and a half to 2 weeks to get caught up. And so I just want to share and go into a little bit more detail than what was described as far as the inconsistency. So in talking with our staff and everyone who's been working on this issue tirelessly, Waste Pro needs 28, preferably 30 trucks to be running every single day, 6 days a week, in order to run a consistent level of service so they can get back to the 2-day-a-week pickup. And instead of having that, we've had a huge fluctuation every single day in what they're providing. So as the city manager mentioned, on Saturday, I was going to say, we got lucky. We had 46 trucks running. And that is because they pulled in resources from other areas that don't have Saturday pickup. So it made a dent. But then what happens the next day that they have service? So when you go from running 46 trucks on one day to 22 trucks the next day to 24 the next day, and then it weebles back and forth between the 22 and the 28, it makes it almost impossible for them to get back to that consistent level of service. And so it's unfortunate and very aggravating for everyone, and I know that, and I'm sorry for that is the reason that we are in this position. It's because no matter what we tried to do to make those accommodations to get them back to that level of service that they are supposed to be providing, that they represent that they can do if we do and give them that opportunity, they still can't provide that level of service to us. And so our biggest question and the biggest frustration, again, is the consistency. And we keep asking them, can you just give us a day? Can you tell us when we could tell our residents when you're going to pick it up? And unfortunately, they're still not able to do that. And so I really would like to keep pressing on this and keep challenging them to please, please, please give us some consistency. Figure out logistically. I mean, and they're in this business, so they should be able to do this. This is their job, to figure out logistically how they can operate their company to get us back to that consistent level of service that they're supposed to be providing. And I know we keep pushing them. I know we're not getting answers. The route situation is got to be the most frustrating thing when you're going down a street. And I'll give an example. I was on Savona going up to an event on Saturday, and I traveled the entire length of Savona up through California. And a portion of Savona gets done, but then the other side of the street, there's probably 8 houses that are not done. And then the opposite side of the street is done, and you have this sketchy pattern going all the way up. And now I understand that trucks might get full and that they have to go and dump them at the landfill. But the consistency problem is that they don't come back and that they say that the routes are done. And then our staff has to go out and do their job for them because we want to try to make sure that we're getting the most accurate and factual information out to our residents that we can. And they have to go back behind them and do their job and check boxes and say, well, you know what? Yeah, they got this section, but they didn't get this section. So I'd say, Mr. Blackburn, if you can please try to have another conversation with their leadership, and please try to get them to give us some type of consistency and figure out logistically how they can do that. Because it continues to be problematic, and we have to keep trying. We really need to keep doing that. So, Councilman Bonner.
Madam Mayor, thank you. First, I want to thank the city attorney for his leadership on this. I know I've been working closely with you as I reach out with residents on next door who contact me or who contact me via email. And up until you've set this email up, you've been documenting every one of those cases as well. And throughout this entire process, you have been a very strong advocate for, along with us, for protecting taxpayers and making things right. And so thank you for that. What has happened here in the past few weeks? Waste Pro has once again failed to keep their word. They've once again failed this community. And one of the biggest frustrations for me is that we have failed to keep control of the narrative. We have failed to communicate to our residents exactly what is going on here. And I'll give just one example of an unforced error this past week. Newspaper reports our decision to pause recycling is costing taxpayers $100,000. I'm not going to sit up here and vote for something that's going to cost taxpayers $100,000 a month. Waste Pro is making up for that lost revenue. It was a non-story. It was an unforced error. Should have never appeared in that paper. I found out about that article in a push notification on my phone. Then several hours later, I get another push notification that the garbage bins are being delivered in September. Well, the city manager, we just heard, they're being delivered in August. We've been saying they've been delivered in August. We need to make sure we absolutely are keeping control of our message. We're watching our communications. This is an emergency. We just went through an emergency RFP. We did an emergency purchase of cans. This is serious business. Council needs to be updated with how many trucks are out there, with how many complaints are coming in. And it needs to be more than weekly, it needs to be daily. We need to have all the information we can to be good ambassadors to the residents in our community. I know at one of the solid waste updates, it was said that Waste Pro is doing everything they can to catch up. Or some iteration of that comment. No company that's doing everything they can to catch up has to be ordered by a judge to do their job. And so we need to stop being apologists for Waste Pro. We tried to be good partners with them for a long time before I got here. But we must not be apologists for Waste Pro. They are not doing everything they can to catch up. And just look at the numbers. 17 days, May 23rd to June 10th. 14 out of that 17 days, they had less than the 28 trucks that they need to just stay on track. Not even talking about catching up. One day, they had the 28 trucks. And then 2 of those days, they were making some progress. 14 out of 17 days, 40-something trucks this week, this Saturday. Wonderful. But then today, 24 trucks. So they're falling behind again. And what does that mean for residents? We tell our residents, please put your trash cans out on your assigned day. And our residents do it. And then Waste Pro doesn't come. And Waste Pro doesn't come. And then they come before their assigned day. And then we tell them, put your trash can out on your assigned day. And then they miss and they miss. And so we're having trash out 7 days a week, 6 days a week. There's no form of, the whole reason I agreed to temporarily pause recycling, because that's not ideal, was because it was going to get us some form of consistency. And what we have is one huge guessing game with trash all over. And so Waste Pro needs to live up to their word. We need to communicate better about all the things that we're doing. Mr. Blackburn gave a litany of things the city was doing. Problem is, nobody knows it. They just know that trash is out every single day. It's not getting picked up. You know, great example. On Nextdoor, there was an issue where someone was told or thought they were told that they weren't accepting recycling anymore because the bins were full. Well, that post got out there. Let's stay on top of it. If we see these things online, on social media, let's correct them. Let's get ahead of them. Let's put stuff out on our social media. And I know we're doing a lot, but this is a very serious moment where we need to do everything that we can. And one of the things I want to talk about, we talked a little bit about the future. I've seen some comments out there, well, this is what once a week pickup looks like. There is a big difference between a once a week model with the proper trash cans, with the proper lids, and consistent pickups, and consistently missed twice a week pickups. So with the new contract, we're going to have the proper bins, the proper infrastructure, reliable service. It's going to be entirely different than what we're experiencing now. But misinformation does a great deal of damage to the reputation of this city. It's a very serious thing, and we need to make sure that we are sharp and on point. And we can't allow Waste Pro, who has problems in 20 municipalities, Palm Coast, Cape Coral, Memphis. We can't allow them to spread the narrative that, oh, the city was unfair to them, because we are doing everything we can to help them be successful and to advocate for our residents. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
Mr. Stokes, Mr. Blackburn, thank you for chiming in. And Councilman Bono, excellent job. You said many of the things that I wanted to say. For far too long, we've sat here and allowed Waste Pro to come in here and tell us what they're going to do. And far too long, Waste Pro has failed to do what they said they're going to do. I'm tired of sitting up here looking and letting Waste Pro make me and this council look foolish. And that's exactly what we're doing. If we don't grab the bull by the horns and take control of the situation, it's only going to get worse. I agreed to pausing the recycling because reluctantly, I knew it wasn't going to get better. And trash pickup has gotten worse. Par for course for Waste Pro. My question to the city attorney is, what can we do about calling their bond? If this is the service that we're getting after them coming in here and telling us that they're going to get better and they're going to get better, and we've made every concession, and yet they slap us in the face every time. It's time to get serious with them, not only with the lawsuit, call their bond. Thank you.
Can I
Yes, please.
We have put their surety on notice. There's a $4.1 or $4.2 million bond. We have put them on notice. We did get a response just late last week. At the end of the day, the surety, the bond company, is an insurance company. And like a lot of insurance companies, they don't like to pay out. So the response that they sent, and if you didn't get it, I apologize, I'll get that out to you, was basically that they acknowledged our claim, but said that until Waste Pro is proved to be in default, they're not taking any further action. So they've kind of put the whole file on hold to wait to see if Waste Pro is going to be proved of being in default. So our choices, because remember, we can't double collect. So if we litigating against Waste Pro, we take them to trial, we get a judgment. If Waste Pro pays the full amount as they would be ordered to do, then we wouldn't collect on the bond on top of it because you don't double dip with damages. But the bondholder, the bonds really protect us for insolvent companies. If somebody contracts to do work for us and then they go bankrupt and just disappear, the bondholder is someone we can go after. In this case, Waste Pro of Florida is a solvent company. So we are doing everything we can to make sure that claim is preserved, but it's not like we can demand a check out of them anytime short of going to trial. So it's still in the works, but it is going to be something that we also have to fight for.
Anyone else? No? You're good? Okay. We're going to go on to public comment on this item. Ms. Howe? Ms. Howe? Okay. Mr. Greifel? I apologize if I pronounced your name wrong, sir.
It's Stu Griffel, 21912 Southwest Tavola Way. Good evening, Mayor and council members. I'm sure you're tired of hearing about the problems with trash pickup, but not hear about the current problems, but mainly with questions about costs for the new contract. I have one comment and a few questions I'll read rather than speaking off the cuff, which would take probably 30 minutes rather than 3 minutes. I don't know the inner workings of what goes on in terms of the city's activities administering the contract on a regular basis. It appears from what I've seen, having complained a few times over the past few years regarding missed pickups, and have recently read and heard from the city manager last week in his presentation on cable channel 20 that it appears to me the city could have probably done a better job of contract oversight in recent years. In the city manager's presentation, it sounded like this was not a new problem with Waste Pro, but began about 3 years ago, shortly after the contract was extended. I'm sure it's gotten obviously worse in the last few months. The city manager also mentioned that things have gotten increasingly worse since the time 3 years ago. But since obviously fines didn't work, I'd like to know first, why didn't the city terminate the contract? The city terminated the contract as things got worse instead of waiting until Waste Pro terminated it. Also, I'd like to know that given the experience with Waste Pro, what the city is going to do to ensure that it does a better job of contract administration going forward. What processes and especially controls are you going to put in place to minimize the possibility that FCC doesn't start providing less than excellent service? Also, there are performance metrics in the contract. Are there performance metrics in the new I guess I don't know if the contract's been signed yet or not, in the contract, not only for output, which is, of course, the missed stops, but also effectiveness, missed pickups and the cleanliness of the site after the pickup. For example, how many and what percentage schedule stops were missed. What residents care about is what the services cost, efficiency, and is it being carried out effectively. Also, the city should make those contract measure results publicly available annually. Also, I'd just like to know where the residents can get copies of the RFP bids in a new contract. And I read in the St. Lucie Voice just recently that there's an increase in the contract every year based on the annual CPI. What happens if FCC's performance starts to decline? Can we forego the annual increase? Also, can it be an annual contract or a maximum of, say, 3 years instead of 7 years? I don't care what the standard and common, what standard and common in the industry regarding how these contracts are written. What I care about, and I hope we all do, is what makes sense for our city.
Sir, could you please
FCC
conclude your
needs us
comments?
as much as we need them. Also.
Can you please conclude your comments?
Okay. In summary, we have a new contract for once-a-week pickup instead of 2 that is costing the residents almost, I believe, 50% more than the previous contract, if I calculated correctly. The new contract is $35.25 per month, which is almost $9 per week, pickup per week. And what about commercial rates? We didn't talk about that. To save $9 per week, I know I'll bring my own trash and recycling to the landfill. I'd like answers to these questions be communicated to me.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Rappaport? Good evening, sir.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and rest of the council. Rather than dredging up all the deridings over past transgressions, I should hope to address some of the ongoing issues. I commend you guys for taking the appropriate steps to usher the city towards hydraulic-powered collection, which is, technology of the last quarter century. There is a interim that I'm sure you guys are all aware of and are dealing with on a regular basis. And it's particularly worrisome given that we're now in rainy season. And when the bins are left uncovered out on the edge of the properties, the water accumulates and accumulates and accumulates. And the mixture of waste and water attracts pests. It promotes bacterial growth. I mean, that's how cholera starts in municipalities. And while suspending recycling collection was a good idea, it doesn't seem to be resolving the consistency issues. It seems to me that they're disincentivized from following through on the contract as you guys are withholding the payment still. And there's there's 3 months more of this. We're also in the middle of hurricane season, which, if there's a massive storm, the winds will carry the trash all throughout the city and also into the state funded protected preserves. Now, what is the liability from, what's the city's liability from the state if that happens? If there's massive amounts of waste that goes into the state protected parks? I presume there's a financial liability there. So, if you guys haven't war gamed that out yet, maybe it's worth doing. As far as if there is a massive storm and there's still trash out on the curbs, what to do. A lot of the discussion that you guys have had seems to be focused on the residential pickup, which I agree is a huge issue. It's unsightly and obviously an actual public health hazard. But commercial properties are affected too. I've talked with restaurant owners, business owners, doctors that have not medical waste, but bio waste. And it's the same issue. If the commercial dumpsters are left to rot, that's exactly what they'll do. So I don't know if you guys can switch over to once per week for pickup, for consistency. If that's all the operational manpower they have, regardless of the judge's orders for them to not move operational manpower out of the city, it seems that that's what they're doing. So if once a week pickup is what will provide consistency, I would argue that you guys should bring them into compliance on that and incentivize them to actually follow through and do the work rather than jockeying about for $1 million or whatever a month when you have a $40 million lawsuit pending. What's $3 million?
Thank you, sir. Mr. Fort?
Thank you, Mayor.
Good evening, sir.
Mr. Blackburn, thank you for everything you said tonight. But to be honest with you, for the last 2 months, Floresta Gardens has been once a week. I'm not advocating for it. I'm just letting you know. When you guys passed the thing to suspend recycling, they hadn't even picked up recycling in my neighborhood 2 weeks prior. So it was suspended as far as we could see it as a neighborhood before you even made that decision. What I would recommend is on this new website or this new email address he wants, I would put that on the PSL portal so that everybody could see it. I would advertise it on Nextdoor. Any way you can get that info out to the general public, because today's the first day I've heard about it. And I guess maybe this is the first day you've heard about it. So that's what I'd recommend. And I can echo what he just said. Maybe we need to suck it up and eat just once a week, but if they could just tell me what day to put it out. Because I put trash out Saturday like majority of my neighborhood, and it still hasn't been picked up yet. And if they're going to pick up Wednesday or a normal day, then we're still once a week. Actually, a week and a half. So that's where I'm at. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. That is all the people I believe I had signed up to speak on this particular item. There's someone in the back. Oh, someone else. Oh, sorry. Would you like to speak on this item?
Yes.
Okay, come to the podium, ma'am.
Hi, my name's.
Good evening.
I'm new to Port St. Lucie.
Welcome.
And I have a new house. And in the less than the year, I have spent more times calling Waste Pro about the garbage pickup because our garbage is on Wednesday and Saturday. We're lucky if they come on Friday, and that's usually after I call because it's not just my house, it's the entire neighborhood. And the last time I called them, which was last week, they started the same excuses, not enough employees, and I basically told them I don't care. I don't care if you don't have enough employees. I don't care that you don't have enough trucks. You're getting paid. Would you tell your boss, you're scheduled for Wednesday, but hey, I'm not going to come in till Friday, but I expect you to pay me. That's basically what you're asking the taxpayers. And frankly, you are causing rodent issues. You're causing fly issues. Garbage cans are tipped over because we get one of those storms and it just knocks the garbage cans over. Now you've got garbage going down the street. And last week when we had that bad rainstorm, the road was underwater and the garbage cans were still sitting out because they hadn't been picked up. I know you guys are in a tough spot, but basically I told them, do your job. That's what I expect. That's what every taxpayer who's paying you twice a week for garbage pickup to pick it up. If you can't do your jobs, then refund all the taxpayers who have paid you. And they'll go get somebody else who will. And I just wanted you guys to know that. They basically have my number on speed dial because I have pretty much called them every week because they don't pick the garbage up till Friday, which is supposed to be picked up on Wednesday, which of course doesn't get picked up on Saturday because they came on Friday, and the cycle continues.
Thank you
So,
very much.
thank you.
We appreciate it. Councilwoman Bonnet, did you have something?
Yeah, yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. There's I wanted to respond to one of the suggestions, which is a valid suggestion to respond to. The suggestion that maybe we ought to consider relieving Waste Pro some of their responsibilities and going to once per week and make a concession like we did with recycling. Problem is, I don't believe that would do anything for Waste Pro, because if we look at prior to the suspension in recycling, Waste Pro was consistently running 20 to 22 trucks for trash and about 8 or 9 trucks for recycling. So let's go on the low end. 20 plus 8 is 28, what they would need to stay and keep up with their schedule. They've been averaging 24 or so since the pause in recycling. So what happened was Port St. Lucie, we made the concession, we held up our end of the bargain, and Waste Pro didn't use it like they said they would. They fell further behind, and they're doing things like, in some areas, they'll come on a Monday to make up for a missed Friday pickup, and then they'll come the very next day on Tuesday for the regularly scheduled pickup. Meanwhile, I'll get a complaint from another neighborhood that they haven't had a single pickup in 3 weeks. I'll get complaints about, they got my neighbor's house and the neighbor next to me, but they skipped my house. Waste Pro is simply not keeping their word. They're playing games. And if we were to make a concession like, oh, Waste Pro pick up once a week, my fear is that we can't trust them to even do that.
And you're not wrong. Do you have something, Vice Mayor?
So, Mr. Greifel, you gave some great questions, and I just want you to know that there are answers to those questions. I understand, I have seen the concern shared about the contract management, and anybody that's interested in that, I'm sure the manager can provide you. In the initial onset, and the city attorney, if you want to jump in, you feel free. The staff was very, very aggressive to ensure that we had proper contract management, to make sure that the contract was done exactly to the terms of what was promised as far as level of service and expectation. That's where the administrative charges came, because they were not maintaining their level of service as per their contract. And so I just wanted to share that. It's not necessarily a point of argument, but I want you to know there are answers to those, and they were very good questions. And I've also heard there's questions out there as well. And I think that we need to see them answered so you know that the steps that have been taken thus far. And Mr. Rappaport, as far as not holding the administrative fees and jockeying for a position, if it was only that simple, it is not. The administrative charges are there to protect you, the resident, to ensure that we have an ability to to make sure Waste Pro does as they have promised. And the reality is that how the administrative fees were charged to begin with were based upon complaints. We had calls come in saying, well, they didn't have yard waste, or they didn't have pick up solid waste, or they didn't pick up this particular neighborhood's recycling. And so out of those issues came the administrative charges. And keep in mind, a lot of the administrative charges, and again, Mr. Attorney, if I'm wrong on this, a lot of the administrative charges weren't just single homes. We're talking complete routes that were being missed time and time again. So we don't have another method, and if anybody can provide me a method that you can make somebody do their job outside of legal matters and fines or administrative charges, please let me know, because I can't force them to do the job that they're supposed to do other than what the tools that are given in the legal process. And so that is everything we have tried to do from the onset. I love the passion, Councilman Bonner, excellent comments. And as a resident myself, seeing my trash, seeing my neighborhood trashed all the time with trash is extremely frustrating. And so I'm glad that you were passionately able to share that with the public, because I think that as a board, I can imagine we're all with you on those comments. And so we're going to continue to work on this. I don't want to be I want to be realistic. I want to be optimistic. We're going to do everything we can. The manager, we're going to continue to push the manager and our team and our legal team to get all the resources out possible to be able to maintain whatever level of service we can during this difficult transition. And we're just going to continue to push as hard as we can. And I just continue to ask, as the mayor said, that Waste Pro does its job, that they actually hold up their end of the bargain. And, and you bring up the 20 other cities, and I know some of those cities. I know some of those elected officials, and it's just as bad in some of those cities. And so they need to step it up in a lot of places. Thank you.
Mr. Blackburn, do you have something?
Yeah, Mr. Griffel did answer or ask a number of specific questions. We'll make sure that Brian or David Graham back there in the back gets his contact information. We'll provide him answers to those questions. They were good questions. Copy the council as well, and we'll post them on our website also.
Absolutely. And so I just wanted to ask our city attorney, is there anything that we haven't done legally or otherwise, in your opinion, to address this issue with regard to contract law and the contract?
No, ma'am. I mean, contracts are, they lock people into obligations.
Right.
But the only way they're enforceable, if people aren't going to voluntarily comply, is to take them to court. And court is always a costly and a lengthy process, and we're pursuing that. As far as some of the concerns, like why it didn't happen sooner and stuff, is also tied up in the contract, because there are steps that need to take place. You can't just, this was what, a 6-year, almost $100 million contract. The first time they missed one house, we couldn't call breach. You have to have a case, just like in anything else. You have to establish the facts. We did that. The other thing is, obviously, if you're going to declare a contract in breach, you have to have something else. This wasn't like we did a contract to buy a Chevrolet pickup truck and they didn't have it, so we could go out and buy a Ford. I mean, in order to replace Waste Pro, we knew it was going to be a long process. So we made sure that we had whatever we had lined up. But this council has directed us to be aggressive and to take every legal avenue we have available, and my office has done that. So there's nothing else out there that we can do right now except for continue to be aggressive, which is what we're planning on doing.
Thank you. Any final comments?
I just wanted to make a comment to everyone in the city, the 10 million viewers that we have. We are residents. We're having the same issues. I'm having the same issues just as much as everyone else is. All of us are. Ours, again, I can't remember which of the speakers said ours was due to be picked up on Saturday and it's still sitting out there. So I am one of the odd ones, I guess. I bag all my garbage, and I even bag my garbage can, and I have a lid that is good and tight. I know that there's a lot that don't have that, and I understand with the rain and the pests that are out there. And it is like Jim said, sorry, city attorney said, it's not like we can just say, okay, Waste Pro, you're done. I'm going to go get this company to come in. It's the same thing, like you did the analogy with the car. If my pool cleaner doesn't come for 2 weeks, I'm going to call another pool company, and it's as easy as that. Well, I hope it is, but it's difficult. It's a very difficult time for all of us, and it's almost like the help us, help you. We're trying. We are working very hard to get this taken care of. So bear with us. More to come.
Thank you.
Thanks.
And we'll continue to do so. We've been eating, sleeping, breathing this situation, just like all of you have, and we're going to continue to do our very best that we can to keep pushing and keep working on it. And so next, we're going to move on to item 13C.